You too. I'm back. I'm back. Today we're gonna be reacting to 3 true scary Christmas horror stories. Animated. But nah, I'm like shit. Language. I'm like shoot, let's keep it in the spirit. I got my cone with me. So we're gonna get into it. Let's go.
Been on dating apps for 3 months when I matched with Evan that December. My ex had moved out in September, and I was tired of sitting alone in our apartment every night. Evan's profile said that he was a software engineer, and he had a husky named Rhodey. He said he liked hiking and made pasta from scratch occasionally. He was a brown-haired guy with a charming smile. We messaged for 2 weeks before he asked if I wanted help decorating for Christmas. He'd noticed I mentioned feeling unmotivated about the holidays and offered to bring lights and ornaments if I wanted company. It seemed sweet. Therefore, I said yes. We set it up for Saturday evening. He'd bring the decorations and had ordered pizza. I gave him my address and asked him to come by around 7. That day, I actually cleaned up, put on real jeans instead of the scrubs I'd been wearing around the house, and felt almost normal. The doorbell rang at 7:15. I opened the door and found this guy who was on my porch, who was not Evan. I mean, he had the same general build, maybe, but he was older and thinner.
Have y'all ever been catfished before? But I remember when I was young, people used to make fake kick accounts and saying they're celebrities. And then people be like, oh yeah, I talk to these celebrities, I know them. You don't know shit, boy.
His face looked wrong, with skin pulled tight over his cheekbones, and his eyes were too wide. He held up a Dollar Tree bag and grinned. I scowled and started closing the door as I told him there must have been a mistake. He laughed and said he'd been traveling for work and lost a bunch of weight from stress. Said I probably remembered him from his old photos, the ones from like 2 years ago, when he still had his...
He's using 2-year-old photos? Yeah, shawty, you cooked. That's why he looks so different. He said 2 years ago.
Dad bod, and apologized. The explanation made sense. People do that on apps all the time, right? And he seemed really embarrassed about it. So, I stepped back and let him in. He walked through my apartment real slow, looking at everything. He paused at the photos on my wall and peeped at the hallway leading to my bedroom as he rambled about traffic and the weather. He said he knew the area pretty well, and he'd been in the neighborhood before. None of it sounded like the Evan I'd been messaging. That guy was charming, witty, and quick with comebacks. This person was jittery and couldn't stop touching things. Then he said something that made my chest tighten. He said the walls in these buildings were so thick, you really can't hear much between apartments. I tried to act normal when inside.
I would say kick him out, but he ain't gonna get out. You gotta just stab him. I ain't gonna lie. That's the only way he leave. You just gotta stab him. This is one of those people you gotta stab.
But I was freaking out. A couple of minutes passed before I told him I needed to grab the step stool from my bedroom. He said he'd help and started to follow me down the hall, even when I told him I was fine. We reached the bedroom door. I got in and firmly told him to wait outside. Immediately, I locked the door. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911. My hands were shaking so bad, the phone almost slipped. I was trying to whisper to the operator when he knocked. I didn't answer. He paused before he called my name in this sing-song way that made every hair on my body stand up. Or not. He pounded on the door so hard,
he's just one of them ones you gotta stab.
I realized my door would eventually give in and the cops wouldn't make it in time. So I jumped from my window, landing barefoot on the cold ground. I could still hear him screaming and kicking my door. I ran to my neighbor, Mrs. Smith's door. I pounded on the door until she opened it up. She took one look at me and pulled me inside without saying a word. The police showed up maybe 10 minutes later. They went into my apartment with their guns drawn. The man was gone, but he'd left things behind. Every cabinet in my kitchen was open. Every drawer was pulled out and dumped. The bathroom medicine cabinet was hanging open. My underwear drawer in the bedroom was raided.
Told you just got stabbed.
It gave me the creeps when I realized this man had stolen a few pairs of my underwear.
And
On my living room wall, written in something dark and dripping, was a message that read, "Merry Christmas, Leah." The officers wouldn't tell me what it was written in. They just said they were sending it to the lab. One of them asked if the man had been bleeding when I let him in. I told them I didn't think so. They asked if I knew his real name or anything about him that could help identify him. I showed them the dating profile on my phone, but it was already deleted before he showed up. The phone number he'd messaged me from went to a disconnected line. The reports claimed the substance on my wall was human blood. They couldn't tell whose. The DNA didn't match with anything in their system. They again asked if I'd noticed cuts anywhere on the man. I didn't, which meant the blood came from somewhere else. The detectives said they were looking into it, but didn't have much to go on. They never found him. The case went cold after a month. I moved out 2 weeks later. I couldn't stay there because I knew he had been in my bedroom and gone through my things. That he'd planned the whole thing. It's been a year. I still can't look at Christmas lights without my stomach turning. Can't open dating apps or be alone with anyone I don't know. Sometimes I think about what would have happened if I hadn't locked that bedroom door and gotten out. The detective said I was lucky. Most women in these situations don't get the chance to run. But I don't feel lucky. I feel trapped, knowing he's out there, somewhere, using someone else's photos, offering to help another lonely woman hang Christmas lights, getting invited into another apartment, and I wonder if she'll have an escape route. I was 9 years old that Christmas Eve. It had been a year since my parents split. It was a nasty divorce. Dad moved to Arizona with his new girlfriend right away, making promises he never kept. He did send child support checks, though, that Mom cashed and spent on other things. We lived in a second-floor apartment on the east side, the kind where the elevator never worked and the hallways smelled like cigarettes and mildew. Mom worked at a gas station when she bothered to show up. Her boyfriend, Ray, didn't work at all. The heat had been shut off for almost a week. I slept in my winter coat most nights. That night, I woke up around 8. The apartment was dark except for the TV glow from some old movie playing with the sound turned down. Mom was passed out on the living room floor near the coffee table. Ray was in the recliner by the window with the needle still in his arm. I'd stopped trying to wake them up months ago. My stomach hurt. I hadn't eaten since lunch at school the day before. Christmas break meant no free meals, just whatever I could find at home. I checked the kitchen cabinets and found baking soda, old tea bags, and a can of beans we couldn't open because the can opener got pawned last month, along with a microwave. The fridge light hasn't come on since the power was cut 2 days ago. Inside was sour milk and a half-empty jar of pickles. I stood there in the dark, watching my breath come out in clouds, when I heard the knock. This was strange because we didn't have visitors who knocked. All of my mom's friends just walked in. I walked to the door slowly and asked who was there without opening it. A man's voice answered, saying he was Santa Claus and had a special gift just for me.
It ain't Santa, buddy.
Even at 9, I wasn't that stupid. I told him to go away, but he kept insisting on coming in, which freaked me out a bit. When he still didn't budge, I told him about my mom dialing the cops. There was silence for a long time after that. Then he chuckled and asked if I meant the woman passed out on the floor. My stomach dropped. I turned around slowly and noticed our living room window. It faced the parking lot, and we always kept the curtains open. There was a man with his face pressed against the glass. He was wearing a ripped Santa suit with no fake beard or hat. He had a pale face and a smile that looked unsettling. He had a crowbar in his hand, and he was staring directly at my mom. I screamed and ran to her and shook her shoulder hard. She groaned but didn't open her eyes. Glass shattered somewhere behind me. I watched, horrified, as he climbed through the window, humming the Christmas jingle. He slowly crawled towards my mom, dragging the crowbar behind him. It made a sickening noise. I hurriedly backed away and ran to the bathroom door, locking myself in. Within 15 seconds, the furniture was crashing. Ray was shouting at the guy to back away. He'd promised he'd pay them back. The guy laughed. Suddenly, Mom was screaming too. I could hear the metal flash. Mom's shrill voice suddenly cut through everything. She was screaming my name over and over. Her screams turned into choked gurgles until they stopped. I pressed my hands harder against my ears and squeezed my eyes shut. I was waiting for him to break down the door and come for me, but he didn't. Soon, loud sirens filled the air, followed by heavy boots that pounded up the stairs. The cops found me in the bathroom. I couldn't move or speak. The officer knelt and asked if I was hurt. He told me not to look when he carried me out, but I looked anyway. Blood was everywhere. They had covered Mom and Ray's lifeless bodies lying on the floor with white sheets. On the kitchen counter was a dirty gray sock stuffed with candy. The police took me to the station and asked questions. I told them everything I could remember. They called my dad. I heard the officer on the phone explaining what happened and heard him say Mom was dead. Dad showed up 3 days later. He didn't hug me when we met. He just asked if I was okay, and I nodded, even though I wasn't. The drive to the airport was quiet.
That's great.
He asked a few questions about what I needed from the apartment. I told him I didn't want anything from there, and he said that was probably smart. On the plane, he finally admitted Mom was problematic even before I was born. He said he'd tried to help, but he couldn't. He said none of this was my fault. I didn't know what to say to that. His wife was waiting at the airport in Phoenix. She smiled at me and said she was sorry about what happened. They had a guest room set up for me already. Her 2 kids from her first marriage kept staring at me like they didn't know what to make of me. Nobody talked about it after that first week. The case went cold within months. It was just another tragedy in the file cabinets. I'm 31 now. Dad died 2 years later from a heart attack. His wife and I barely spoke at the funeral. I've got my apartment and my life. I don't celebrate Christmas, and I haven't since I was 9. Sometimes I look up the case online. There's not much there except for a couple newspaper articles with the headlines like "Double Suicide on Christmas Eve" and "Child Survives Attack." They don't mention the sock full of candy or the sick Christmas jingle. They never found him. I don't know if he's dead or in prison somewhere, or if he ever did it again. All I know is what I remember, and I remember everything. Lila and I had rented this cabin we found online for Christmas Eve. It was one of those rustic mountain places advertised as secluded romantic getaway. The drive up took 3 hours. Snow was falling heavily by the time we arrived. The cabin sat in a small clearing surrounded by dense pine forest. There weren't any other houses or lights visible. We unloaded the car, got the fireplace going, and opened a bottle of wine.
Oh,
By
shit.
7, we were settled
Gotta
in
get
and
to
finally
it.
started to relax when someone knocked on the front door. Lila and I looked at each other. We weren't expecting anyone. The rental company had left the key in the lockbox, and we hadn't seen another car on the road for the last hour. Anyway, I opened the door to find a woman standing on the porch, bundled in a heavy winter coat and a wool hat. Her face was pale, and her eyes were too wide. She introduced herself as a friend of the property owner. She said she lived nearby and wanted to make sure we had everything
she
we
look
needed.
crazy right here.
I thanked
like, I don't
her,
answer
said we were all
to
set,
my prophecy.
and started to close the door.
Foot in her door.
But she stepped closer and asked if she could come in for a minute.
No.
Something about the way she was looking past me into the cabin made my skin crawl. Right then, Lila appeared behind me. She politely told the woman we were fine, that we appreciated her checking but didn't need anything. The woman's smile faltered. She stared at Lila for a long moment, then back at me, before she nodded and left. We closed the door and locked it. Lila said that was weird. I agreed.
Indeed.
We tried to shake it off and went back to our wine and the fire. But I couldn't forget about the way that woman had looked at us. The way she tried to see inside the cabin. She hadn't mentioned which direction she'd come from or exactly where she lived. But Lila got over it, so I didn't bring it up. We went to bed around 11. The bedroom was on the second floor with windows overlooking the forest. Snow was still falling, muffling everything in silence. Around midnight, I woke up to Lila gripping my arm so tight her nails dug into my flesh. She was frozen in terror and trembling. I looked around. The bedroom was dark, except for the moonlight coming through the window. I followed Lila's vision toward the doorway where a dark silhouette stood. I squinted and immediately recognized her as the woman from earlier. She was standing at the foot of our bed, holding a big kitchen knife from the drawer downstairs. When our eyes met, she flashed me a smile, and before I could lift a finger, she screamed and lunged at me. Lila screamed while I rolled off the bed just as the knife came down, hitting the mattress where I'd just been. The woman was shrieking words I couldn't quite make out. Something about the house being hers.
Beat her ass!
She went for Lila next.
You don't know what to do. As a man, you just gotta come to the, you gotta know is you either fight or everybody dies. This nigga don't know what to do on the show. He should have rolled over. So she right there. He should have rolled out the bed. And then she got a knife, so you gotta hold her ass. And you need to grab the knife and hold her. And you say, call the police. Call the police. And you just choke her. Just hold her. Hold her. You take the knife. You push her dumb ass. Push her dumb ass, right? Say, hey now. Hey now. Sing it again. Sing along! Yeah. And you just gotta torture them like that till the police get here.
Grabbed the bedside lamp and swung it hard, but the woman caught her first. She slashed her arm. Blood started soaking through her sleeve. Lila cried and fell. The woman aimed at her head and was about to stab when I grabbed the first thing I could reach, a cast iron skillet we'd used for breakfast that morning, and I swung it as hard as I could. It connected with the
You got as hard as you could. I need you to 10 times harder.
Side of the woman's head with a sound I'll never forget.
Picked a
Do it
great
again.
name, but your voice doesn't quite match it?
We have a fix.
Voice mod gives you over 100.
She dropped to the floor. Lila was crying, holding her arm. I was shaking so badly I could barely hold the skillet.
Hey, but you did
We
it though.
stood there staring at the woman's body on our bedroom floor. I checked for a pulse, but couldn't feel anything.
Bad.
Blood was pooling around her head where I'd hit her. Lila
She trying
said
to
we
kill you
needed
off
to call the
first.
police.
Yeah, call the
I
cops.
nodded and reached for my phone. Right then, the woman jerked upright like she'd been pulled by strings and touched the side of her head where the blood was running down her face.
You gotta hit her again.
My heart pounded
Did I
in
just
my
say?
chest
Oh
as
my
I
God,
watched
that's what
her
I say.
lick
You gotta
her
hit people.
fingers.
You have to hit people. See, you should have hit this bitch twice. Niggas don't listen. She would have been down.
Clean before she dabbed them in blood again and smeared it across her cheeks like war paint. Suddenly, she started laughing. Then she bolted out of the bedroom, down the stairs. We heard the front door slam open. Lila and I didn't move for a whole minute as we tried to process what we'd seen. Finally, I went downstairs. The front door was hanging open, snow blowing in. Bloody footprints led from our bedroom, down the stairs, and out onto the porch. Then they disappeared into the woods. I slammed the door and locked it. I checked every window and locked them all. But we kept hearing her laugh out in the woods. Sometimes it sounded close, like she was right outside. We didn't sleep, just sat in the living room with the lights off, holding the skillet and a butcher knife we'd found in the kitchen, waiting for her to try breaking in again. The sounds continued all night. When the sun finally came up, I opened the door carefully. The porch was covered in bloody handprints smeared everywhere. Some were fresh, still red. Our car was covered in handprints all over the windshield, the doors, and the hood. She'd spent the night circling the cabin, touching everything. We ran to the car. I had to scrape the handprints off the window just to see well enough to drive. Lila kept looking at the woods,
She a crackhead.
expecting the woman to jump out at us at any moment. We didn't stop driving until we hit the main highway, called the police from a gas station 40 minutes away. They went up to the cabin that afternoon,
They ain't
found
supposed
the
to call
blood on
last
the bedroom
night.
floor and the handprints everywhere. But there weren't any signs of the woman or trails that led anywhere useful. The rental company said they'd never heard of anyone claiming to be a friend of the owner. Said nobody lived within 5 miles of that cabin. Lila needed 12 stitches in her arm. The scar is still visible. We both took therapy for months. We still can't go anywhere remote
I get it.
or handle unexpected knocks on the door.
Hey man, that was that video. Hey man. Alright, that was me reacting to that. I know I didn't talk a lot because I be kind of wanting y'all to watch it too. But I hope y'all liked it. Shout out to MJV Animations. Y'all go subscribe to them. Subscribe to me first. Like shit. Maybe, I don't know. But thank you for watching. I'm about to go take a nap. Ugh, my bad.